Follow up on that a bit. My mother and father used to tell me I was nervous and jerky. And then as I grew up, they said I wasn't nervous anymore. I'm still thinking about that, how that plays out. I suppose there's a certain element of truth in there, but I've learned to live with that, as all of us do. Religion, our faith, our church, exists for one reason and one reason only. And that is to somehow to help you in your relationships to think of them as they are intended to be thought of and about through the eyes of Jesus and the eyes of our Creator God. To help you to remember that love in all of its various manifestations and appearances is what life is all about. And further, that love and all of its manifestations in your life are meant to encourage and to help you shape a meaning for your life, and also to establish connections with people and places in all of the different aspects of your own living. Now, a lot of times, we don't choose to do that, really don't want to do that, and aren't too sure how to go about doing it. Because to grow in meaning and connections, sometimes you have to look at yourself. And a lot of times we don't want to look at ourselves because we aren't sure, A, what we're going to find, and B, we're afraid we know what we're going to find and aren't particularly happy about it. I was reading an article by a psychotherapist who was talking about one of his clients under a different name, used the name Caitlin. And with Caitlin, everything was a secret. There was no one at school who knew anything about the chaos and the embarrassment of her life at home, where she'd often come home and find her mom laying in the kitchen, drug-stupered, and she never quite knew how she was going to find her dad, who was a drinker, and he would be in one of his moods. And she would live a very hidden life all the way through her schooling and all the way through college. And in fact, that is how she determined that her life was going to be. She was going to live a hidden life. And she lived frightened of most about everything as a result, because she didn't want to be found out or have anything found out. So she finally went to a counselor because she had the courage to realize that this was not a way to live. There was no grace, no love, no hope, no goodness that she was really able to identify and to live in the midst of. So she went to the counselor to learn how to make better decisions, to learn how not to be so shy and hidden with her life, to enjoy other people just for their own sake, just because. There are many enjoyable and pleasurable people in this world. And not to gravitate all the time to people who were less functional than she was, which made her feel a little better about herself, but not really. Well, you take the one-talent guy in the gospel reading this morning. It's a lot like the psychotherapist patient Caitlin. Afraid to make bad decisions, to stay hidden, to stay out of the limelight, to stay out of the eye of his boss. But he ends up getting more attention, in fact, and even worse attention, not good attention. And that's the contrast with the 2 and the 5 talent people, who were better about themselves. They were more realistic in their assessment of themselves. They had a better sense of who they were and that they were full human beings. And that regardless of how rotten their boss or slave owner, they were slaves, how horrible their slave owner was, what they decided to do through their own understanding of faith and God was to make an investment in living and in life, regardless of the consequence. Regardless of whether they were slaves or not, they made an investment in living and in life. That's one face of courage, by the way, as the Bible describes it, to invest in life despite the uncertainty of the result. Now, you'll also notice the one-talent guy. What was the one thing that he did really well? He got angry. What's he say about his boss? You're a thief. You take other people's property and use it, and they're afraid to confront you about it. And I'm afraid of you as a result. And I'm angry at you because of that. And so what does anger do? And anger does this for all of us, by the way. Anger is always the emotion that will hide the truth. And the truth will always occur at the time and place and occasion of your vulnerability from your past. Anger will always hide fear. It'll hide sadness. It'll hide your fear of rejection. It'll hide your fear of being ashamed. It'll hide your blame. And it will always push up hard against benevolence, the gospel, wishing well other people's lives. Because when you're angry, it's tough to wish well to other people. Because when you're angry, you're actually hiding your own self and fear of being found out for less than a full human being. So what the gospel today and Jesus' story describes is a couple of people who threw it to the wind and threw caution to the wind and acted on a courage which is also called faith. What they did was to make an investment in life. And you know that the gospel and faith will be active in your life at the times and the occasions where amongst the menu of the choices that you have to make with your life, with other people, you choose not to share the badness that you feel about yourself, or to share the badness by blaming the other person. You will know that your faith has touched you at the time and the occasion when you share love, care, affection, forgiveness, beauty, truth, fairness, and you choose not to share the bad. And it is always a matter of the choosing. Which shall it be? The early monks learned that fact, and that's why I like to focus on the monks. Right now, I just want you to know I'm looking at all of you as cloistered monks and nuns. And I can even vision you in your habits. Because the one thing that they learned early on was that in order to move from a sense of badness about yourself, and therefore about hiding from the world through anger and resentment and blame, became a matter of practice and rehearsing. Literally what the choir does to make the sound that comes out of their mouths. Practice. Habitual habit. That is what is called for. And that is what Jesus would often talk about in the Sermon on the Mount in particular. You have to practice these things. You need to practice these things over and over and over again so that you can replace the badness, the sharing of the bad, the blaming that others are bad, to replace that self-hurting habit with other helpful, upbuilding, life-giving habits that we call in the parable today making an investment of the talents. They are present in you. They are gifts that are given to you. And you are regularly invited to use and to share those gifts in a multitude of ways. The one way that you know that Jesus is going to be around is when you get yourself into a position where you have to act contrary to your badness. When you have to act contrary to your inclination to blame or accuse others. Where you have to act contrary to yourself to blame yourself or to invite rejection, where you have to, in fact, make an investment in the other person and be interested and caring of them for their sake and forgetting about your own life. That's the promise of the gospel. It's present in you and has been present in you from the moment of your birth. And that is your investment in life and in living. The investment of yourself as a person of good news, as a person of integrity, as a person of love, of care, of forgiveness, of courage. It's your gift, and it's there in you, just waiting to be unleashed. Amen.